welcome to our monthly session for the Bharat Connect. Usually we have a panel discussion every month. So this month we are going to have like a one-on-one discussion with Smita. We are supposed to have panel, but unfortunately we have some situation where our couple of our panelists had a personal emergency and family or someone admitted in the hospital and things like that. So they had to go there and not able to attend. So we'll make it as a one-on-one session for this month, and then we'll go back to our panel discussion next month onwards. So introducing the topic, right? Today's topic is specific actions that you should take to be more customer oriented. We all know more and more new features, more and more new technology, more and more new swiping, touch screen technologies, appearing, and ordering food from home, or ordering any service from home. In fact, ordering any pickup from home, so you don't even have to go to a place in person anymore. You can have somebody to go do things for us, and then go deliver things for us, including cake or birthday card or anything for that matter. So it is all about taking care of the customers in a way that they want, and how we can please them. So we while the whole world is getting accustomed to all these new comfort features and everything, how are we supposed to do take care of our customers, and how do we stay focused, and what we should be doing in our business that that makes us more relevant, and stay focused, how we can be customer oriented, right? That's what we are going to discuss today. To understand this, so we have to collect some data from customers from all across, in the sense not from one section, all different segments, and then put together, create a view where have a better understanding about the customer and what is their requirement, and how to go about servicing them, and where they need help, and things like that. So I think to help us understand this and navigate this difficult topic, we have a right person here, field expert, to with us, explain. So without further ado, let me introduce in customer experience with over 2 decades. So that tells how much we can learn from discussing with her today. So it's going to be a lot of good learning. And she currently heads customer experience at Equita Small Finance Bank, and she did work in big name firms like Franklin Templeton, Cholamandalam MS General Insurance, Cholamandalam DPS, G Money, and things like that. So she does carry a lot of experience from different industries, different companies, so that's a good thing. Plus, she is a COPC certified coordinator, and she has a Lean Sigma black belt as well. So she's a ISO internal auditor also. So looking forward to get her feedback and her understanding and her experience, how we can take advantage of, right? So Smita, welcome to our discussion today, one-on-one interview. So thanks so much for being with us, and spending your time. I know it's not easy to find time in the middle of the week, and busy interview time, busy meeting times, right, in between meetings. So I know you had a long day today already, so thank you so much for being with us, Smita.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction, Ottoman. And yeah, as you rightly said, I have around 23 years of work experience, predominantly in the customer service and customer experience field. And to my recent credits a year back, I've also taken a certification on being a CX pioneer. And yeah, so my journey starts, right from the roots. And I've been with the GE for around 7 to 8 years, and that's the background. And as anybody would know, GE is an extremely process-oriented organization focusing on, the customer at keeping the customer in the center of anything and everything. So that's where my roots are. Yeah, happy to be a part of these discussions.
Yeah. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into our discussion points. So so the first one will get started with let's define, let's take a moment and define what exactly customer orientation means, and what specific actions do you take to bring about customer orientation.
Yeah, so customer orientation, as I rightly said, so GE can't be there can't be a better example than GE. So as I mentioned, everybody in the organization, in any organization, for example, once they start focusing at the customer from the process perspective. So for example, when we discuss a new process, right? If we look at it from the customer's lens, so having the customer in the center and then putting the process around the customer, that's when the organization is really a customer focused organization. So when I say that, this is very cliched, isn't it? Because everybody talks about customer being in the center of anything and everything, right? But how does it translate? So what happens is, in organizations, you have organizational priorities. Okay, so at the organization level, where does your customer stand? There has to be clarity on that. So at the organizational level, if the customer and the customer related issues are discussed, okay, and at what can I say, at a CEO level, or at a
Yep.
at a board level, if there is
Yeah.
a focus around customer and customer related issues,
Right. Yeah.
obviously, the entire hierarchy in the organization starts following it.
Yeah.
So while all customer centric organizations are mostly top down driven,
Yeah.
and I've not seen an organization which is down top driven so far. So from the organization's perspective, customer really needs to be, at that level, talked about, discussed about, strategized about, and then the organization just follows suit.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well said, actually. So yeah, it's always tricky, right? So top down or bottom up approach, and it's a tricky situation, but we know what works the best, right? So if you don't have enough good understanding, and then if you're just pushing it through from the top to bottom, probably it's not going to go well, right? So so that's a key. So what do we know about customer? What are they looking for? If you, that's a key, in what we are supposed to do, and how we are proceeding. Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next one. According to Salesforce, 73% of customers expect companies to understand their needs and expectations, but only 51% believe companies generally do. What methods do you use to understand what your customers consider valuable instead of what your business considers valuable? Can you take us through a few examples?
So yeah, so typically in organizations, what happens is a more inward-looking process happens, right? So while every organization has now got on to understanding what is the NPS, what is the satisfaction score, everybody is running madly behind these two because they understand that somewhere this is what is going to give them the lift in business. It's a service industry that we are in, right? So everything is service driven. So to give that extra edge, service is the only tool that an organization holds. So what happens is there are, as I mentioned, there are organizational priorities. While you know that your customer wants XYZ, you also do a prioritization whether at this point in time your organization is willing to bite the bullet or should they do it in phases. Okay, so that's what happens. So that's why when we do understand what the customer wants and still take a decision that yes, this is going to be staggered or this is something that we should give a key focus on, not all items you will be able to do at one go. So I'll give you some
Yeah.
examples of this, a typical example of what I have seen or I have myself managed.
Okay.
So in CSAT surveys that we not only get feedback about existing processes that we have, which we need to correct, or where which has not gone so well, where those corrections are a given, right? So that is something that the organization will definitely go ahead and do it, right? However, customer also gives us suggestions and feedback saying that this is what you guys have to focus on. Okay, that's something which the organization is not ready for at the moment. The organization will take a stand saying that I understand that there is a segment of customers who are looking at this specific product, but at this point in time, I'm just going to stagger this a bit. We are not ready as an organization to plunge, right?
Okay.
So I don't want to get into specifics because
Yeah.
then I'm telling you what the issue is. But yeah, typically we have seen those discussions happen even at the board level,
Yeah.
saying that these are the couple of things that customers are looking forward to, and this is the segment of customers. We know that this specific segment of customers, will definitely increase the revenue,
Yeah.
but for XYZ reasons, we just don't want to do it at this point in time, but we're going to stagger that out, right? So as I can very well relate to the study that Salesforce has done. It is but natural to have that, and that's how it is going to be, because somewhere your organizational priority definitely will supersede what your customers also are looking at.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. True. Yeah, you have to balance both sides. So yeah,
Yeah,
there's always
absolutely. It's a balance. Yeah.
yeah. There's going to be competing priorities. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I remember, like, we also have to do a few things like that. So when you are especially in the early growth stage, like, what do you do? And few years later, like, the same thing, what do you do? Like, it's not going to be the same, it's going to be different. So it's not that we are not focused on the customer, service, or we are not customer oriented anymore, but it is just that as an organization we have grown, we are maturing, and how we did in the early stage and how we do things now, can be a little bit different, right? Not necessarily a bad thing, but maybe it's because, we could not afford to have certain process in the beginning, and maybe we are able to afford to have some process now, things like that. And so yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So here is another example, I want to discuss, take your opinion about. In 2007, Netflix, after delivering close to 1 billion DVDs to customers' mailboxes, realized that their customers would prefer something different. Inexpensive, simple to access entertainment that they could watch on demand. Netflix recognized that it needed to be customer oriented despite disrupting its business model. Do you have any such examples at your organization?
Oh, yeah. So Corona was the typical example. Uh, so Corona caught us unawares. We were typically an organization which was paper-based, right?
Yeah.
So if the customer wanted to apply, he should walk into the branch and apply for a savings account. So that's how our bank was traditionally. And Corona suddenly gave us a joke and then said that, listen, no customers are going to visit your branches, neither are you going to start or your staff going to visit any customer. So at that point in time, we quickly developed a online tool where the customer could apply online. So we got, so there is an RBI requirement that you need to meet the customer face to face as well. So we quickly got the video KYC ready. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
we enabled our virtual channel pretty fast. Okay,
Okay.
so and then we, of course, we had some tie-ups with some fintech partners who could take the lead in terms of, you know, spreading the word around and having their own way of sourcing customers digitally. And so those were the certain plunges that were done, but that was really not enough, because what we saw was, suddenly we saw that the number of customers who were actually taking accounts with us increased manifold. Okay, and we really were not ready with the service model as to how do we go ahead and service these customers. They wouldn't walk into branches. Okay, so
Yes.
parallelly we started working on digital servicing for these customers, and I can proudly say that Equitas is one of the banks which has all services which a customer would walk into the branch on their app today. Okay, so what we did was, we actually did a huge activity whereby we said that there are certain things where we need to see the customer, and there are certain things where he can do it on his own. So wherever we had to see the customer and then process the request, though we launched video banking as well. So video KYC is only more
Okay.
for taking the account, whereas for a branch
Okay.
related activity, we had to launch a video banking as well. So we
Okay.
launched video banking very quickly, and all the services that a branch would give on a face-to-face manner. So, for example, if you
Okay.
want to change the mobile number, which is the most critical thing in banking parlance, it's extremely critical because all alerts go, you get to know your balance,
Yes.
everything. So there
Yes.
is too much of a due diligence that is required if that number has to be corrected. So
Absolutely.
the bank prefers to see who the person who's requesting for the change. The bank wants to validate, verify with credentials, face to face, and all that. So we launched with this process. So digitally source customers, in case they wanted to change their mobile number, there is no branch available. So they just got
Yeah.
onto video banking, placed their request in video banking, and then their request got processed seamlessly. So this big shift in the organization happened, like disrupting our own traditional
Yeah.
method, and
Absolutely.
moving into completely a digital world happened
Yeah.
during corona. And thanks to corona, if not for corona, this would have probably taken a couple of years for us to implement.
To that.
But because of
Yes.
corona, we just went implemented it just like that.
Just like that. Yeah. 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 Yeah, very true. Actually, many things happen. Like, we have some examples too. Like, yeah, so we have seen a lot of regulations going away just because of the corona in terms of telecom, right? So otherwise, the call flow, what you can do, like, what is the restriction earlier believed to be necessary? Otherwise, there's going to be a, like, revenue leakage. So the Department of the Telecommunication DOT had several regulations, like, that made it very, very hard for cloud-based providers like ClearTouch and all that. But uh, what eventually happened is, like, when they realized agents are going to be sitting at home, but the business has to continue. Banks are operating, contact centers are operating, but agents are home, but they have to take the call. How do they do that? So then they realized it, and then they said, okay, we will do something for temporary. But then, like, the work from home scenario, the remote work from remote area is not, like, going away anytime, right? So now they have realized just here to stay, not like, going away. So they made most of these changes like, permanent, meaning, like, so we are able to do a lot more than what we could a few years back. So that's a good side effect of the pandemic, actually. So yeah,
Very
that's
true.
good. Actually, it's very interesting when you said you are able to do video banking, and then, like, have ability to have them change their mobile. That's a pretty powerful feature, right? So that would have been really exciting, right? From within inside the bank, and as a customers, that would have been a delight, actually.
Yeah,
Certainly.
yeah. So what is also done is, Nowadays, if there is, so we have relationship managers, etc., right? So our relationship managers just say that, just log on to our app and do a video banking in case you want to, change your mobile number. And so it's like become such an easy thing for the customer, and it's also become a USP for
Yeah.
the relationship managers, service in your fingertips. That's what it's called.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. This is what I call it, like, face the challenge, brave, and make that challenge into your opportunity, and make that as your, most compelling selling point or a unique, your
Absolutely.
unique, like, USP, right? So, yeah, so that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good job actually there. Okay. So the next one is, the customer orientation runs across the organization, right? And it is the responsibility of everything from the bottom to the top of the pyramid. How do you nurture such a culture in your organization? How do you sustain them?
This is the toughest part in the whole thing, right? So while you can easily put together a strategy for the organization and say that this is how it has to be, we all have to be customer centric, etc. Unless and until the last mile in the organization really takes the baton and says that yes, I will live this value. Okay,
Mhm.
it's going to be really tough, right? So at our organization, it's one of the core values. Customer first is one of the core values and the first value, of course,
Mhm.
right? But how this runs across the organization, so I wouldn't say we're already there. We are
Okay.
reaching there. Okay.
Okay.
First is in terms of awareness. First, people should be aware of what does it mean to be customer first. Okay. When the customer is saying, so when the organization is saying customer first, what does it mean to the guy who's there at the branch servicing customers at an executive level? Okay, does he even
Mhm.
understand this term customer first? Okay, so it stems right from there. Now, how will an organization bring about this change, and how will it sustain it? Is through constant communication, rewarding. So there are various ways to do it. One is
Mhm.
constant communication, rewarding. Okay, every appreciation that the field team receives, is we create a halla about it. Every month there is a dashboard in terms of how many customers have appreciated each person with their names. Okay, the business heads actually appreciate them. So one is a rewarding culture for every appreciation that is received. Okay,
Okay.
then the other way is in terms of constantly holding trainings for organizations, where we know that you have certain feedback that you're getting from your VOCs, from the voice of the customer, from your CSAT surveys, from your NPS. These are very beautiful input items for you to know where exactly you need to focus on, right?
Yeah.
Rather than spreading your wings everywhere and not getting the required output.
Yeah.
All that
Mhm.
you need to do is see your weak pockets, and you know what exactly you need to do at your weak pockets, right?
Yeah.
So, also in terms of leadership discussions, during leadership discussions, this becomes a very mandatory discussion where people and leaders talk about their CSAT scores, talk about their NPS scores. Because if you're not keeping your customer happy, it's right there in your dashboard reflecting poorly on you, right? So the
Yeah.
output
Yeah.
matrices, as we call NPS and CSAT, is the moment of truth, right? For
Okay.
every branch, that is the moment of truth,
Yeah.
right? And once the leader starts focusing on these matrices, then it really gets ingrained into the resource who's right at the last mile,
Yeah.
right? So that becomes a more sustainable model where your goal sheet and the goal sheet of every executive to the leadership is aligned to this specific
Customer.
output metric.
Yeah. 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 Very true. Yeah, so that's a common ground for everybody, right? So it just cuts across the organization, right? So it's not just any one person's responsibility; it's everybody's. So and
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and that is something like easily relatable for everybody, and like everybody is responsible for that, and everyone has to work towards that. Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
true. Yeah. Okay, so with that, we will come to the last question. That is like, how do you ensure people first attitude within your organization, which is the prerequisite for providing better customer experiences? How do you ensure happier employees and relate them to customer orientation?
Yeah, so so this is again pretty much related to what I just mentioned. Always a better customer experience comes from a happy employee, right?
Mhm.
So if you see also your CSAT or your NPS scores, uh, it's to do a lot with the relationship that the person holds with the customer, right? If there is a very cordial relationship with the customer, okay, it's though there must have been some service issues or service deficiencies, he is just willing to pardon all that just for this person. Okay,
Mhm.
so mostly when you see, the feedback that we get either from a CSAT or from an NPS survey, it's very relationship bound. Okay, so when
Yeah,
the customer speaks to a bank employee, all that he expects is a warm, nice, a very courteous, a polite
yeah,
interaction, right? And
yeah,
also if he
yeah.
is facing any issues, a prompt response. Okay, and also if there is a, if it is going to take time, then he expects that the person should go up and tell him that this is going to take time. Okay, so these are some very, very, very basic things,
Mhm.
right? Though it is so basic in nature, we still
Yeah,
flounder on all of these.
yeah.
And this is, and this is ingrained into employees. Now how do we keep our employees happy, right? So there again is
Yeah.
rewards, recognition, and of course providing an atmosphere of happiness for the employee.
Okay.
Now why does an
Yeah.
employee not serve his customer? You kind of drill back and understand, what should I do to make our executive or the employee who's right at the forefront, okay, deliver the best of services? One is I need to ensure his skill to handle customer is there,
Yeah.
the knowledge is there, okay, and thirdly I should also ensure my processes and systems are in place. So
Okay.
these four input items, if
Mhm.
I'm going to really ensure, okay, the employee will definitely deliver a very good service to the customer.
Yeah.
It increases his confidence levels. Okay, it improves his what can I say? It improves the way he is going to handle customers,
And yes.
and every interaction also becomes as per what the customer also wants,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
However, the other aspect to it is also, general atmosphere. How is the boss treating? How is the general atmosphere at a branch office, at a head office, or wherever? Okay, so HR does a lot in terms of checking out on employees, and from time to time surveys, and how is your mood today, kind of emoticons on your HR portal, and those are the kind of things that are also done to just ensure. And of course, the biggest metric that is monitored, all of these are metric driven, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the biggest metric that is there with us glaring on our face is the attrition. So happy employees will seldom leave you,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they leave you for a higher salary, mostly for thinking that the other organization will have a better manager. Okay, so these are hoping
Yeah.
rather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so these are the things that go around keeping employees happy.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's like an ultimate goal, right? If you have employees staying with you for a really long time, and that shows they're happy, right? Because without somebody is happy or satisfied, it's not very common for them to stay that long. So yeah, that's a good indicator actually. So just like that is just like taking the customer survey for the on the employee side, right? So how long they stay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that answers it. And so that is like the that's a good discussion, so we are able to get your insights and like sharing your experience and all that. So now let's quickly go to audience and see if there are any questions, and then so we'll take a few questions, otherwise we can wrap up the session. So
Sure.
audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to go right now.
Hi, Sumanta. Good evening. This is Divakar. Um,
Hi, Bharat.
Thank you for this wonderful session today. We really had a lot of insights. I have one question for you. So while you were telling that in terms of serving customers right and keeping the experiences always at par, and having your first contact resolution up, you have processes and a lot of systems in place. My question is, do only processes and other things have better FCRs, or is it the authorization that you give your agents or the empowerment that you give your agents that brings the first call resolution better? Which one of is this in your experience? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, great question there, Divakar. So what you're referring to is, if I had to rephrase, is it empowerment vis-a-vis easy process? Okay, see, both go hand in hand. What happens is, in a state where so normally empowerment comes along with what I can afford as an organization, in terms of saying that, okay, this band takes in, you can go ahead and decide, okay, basis these specific criteria being met, you can go ahead and do these things for the customer. Okay, that's the empowerment that we're looking at for the front end, right? So what we have done, Divakar, is like any organization would do, first and foremost, is we are seeing how can I ensure that my processes are in such a way that I do not, put myself into a position that I have to take certain judgmental calls. Okay. Now, while yes, I think I can address maybe 60-70% of the issues with that, with a good process, you will still have situations where, yeah, you do need to take that judgmental call, right? It is the organization's ability to give that to the grassroots level employees sitting there handling the customer at that point in time. Certain organizations do it extremely well. Okay, certain organizations, I can say Amex, for example, does it beautifully well. Okay, but certain organizations risk appetite, or the appetite to give that empowerment to the last mile might not be as good, right? So this is an organizational decision. All right, it's bound by an organizational decision. So I would say that to an extent, yes, definitely it will work. Okay. However, it is better. Otherwise, what you're also doing is, while you are empowering that person, you are actually not seeing what exactly needs to be done to not put you in that position, right? So here the suggestion is empowerment, great. Okay. However, if we are looking at invert and seeing what needs to be done for us not to put ourselves in that position, that would be even great.
Great. Yep. Sure.
Thanks, Mata. That was clear. Yeah.
Okay. So Anyone else? Any other questions? Looks like there are no more questions, so we can wrap up the session. So Smita, like, so thank you so much for being with us, and we are sorry you had to change the format, and so you are so kind to
So I got
accommodate.
the full limelight.
So you are you cooperating. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated. When there is a chance, I would like to I owe you a lunch at least. I want to take you out for lunch sometime. So let's see how quickly we can do it. Yeah, thanks so much,
Sure.
Smita, and thanks so
Sure.
much, audience, for being here with us today. And so that wraps up our this month's session, and I'll see you in sometime in April first week. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.
Bye.